Oh, once I was a shepherd boy, kept sheep on a Compton down. About 2 miles from Illersley was called a market town. With me falderall, or the riddle-oddy-o, falderall I day. In the morn when we do rise, when daylight do appear, our breakfast we do get, me boys, to the fold we steer. With me falderall, or the riddle-oddy-o, falderall I day. When we gets to our sheepfold, we merrily pitched him round. All the rest part of the day, we sail the downs all round. With me falderall, or the riddle-oddy-o, falderall I day. When we gets up on the down, gazing ourselves all around, we see the storms arising, boys, coming on all round. With me falderall, or the riddle-oddy-o, falderall I day. When the storm is a-coming on, the rain fast down do fall. Neither limb nor tree to shelter me, I must stand and take it all. With me falderall, or the riddle-oddy-o, falderall I day. There we stand in our wet clothes, shining and shaking with cold. We dare not go to dry ourselves till we drive our sheep to the fold. With me falderall, or the riddle-oddy-o, falderall I day. When the storm is over, and that you may plainly see, I'll never keep me sheep anymore where there's neither limb nor tree. With me falderall, or the riddle-oddy-o, falderall I day. Once I was a shepherd boy, kept sheep on a Compton down. About 2 miles from Illersley was called a market town. With me falderall, or the riddle-oddy-o, falderall I day. With me falderall, or the riddle-oddy-o, falderall I day.
Hi, this is Jan Lardner. That was a song called Once I Was a Shepherd Boy, and it was collected in 1909 by Cecil Sharp. As a folk song collector, Cecil Sharp was probably the greatest folklorist to have lived here in the British Isles. He was methodical, caring and untiring. Despite having very little money and atrocious health, he amassed a vast collection of songs from both England and America. His method of collecting involved finding a singer, noting down the tunes in musical notation, and then asking the singer to recite the words of the song. The words were often taken from song sheets, called broadsheets. Broadsheets were the printed song sheets often sold by hawkers at country fairs, and consequently were the raw material for many of our traditional songs. Something that is not so widely known is that Cecil Sharp also took photographs of his singers. It was some time ago that I sat in the studio at BBC Radio Lancashire with the singer, broadcaster and folklorist Nick Dow. We were staring at one of Sharp's photographs. The photograph was of an old man in his 80s. He was a shepherd, and he sat facing the camera with a quiet dignity, dressed in his shepherd's coat, and with a proud and almost quizzical look on his weather-beaten face. Nick looked at me and said, "That's the man who sang John Barleycorn." The song John Barleycorn tells the story of how the barley was sown, harvested and turned into beer. But the song does have echoes of a more ritualistic view of the world, when John Barleycorn was the corn god, to whom numerous sacrifices were made to ensure a good harvest, but more of that later. There in the studio, Nick sang a snatch of the tune, and we both stared at the picture of one of the most interesting singers to have been found in the Cotswolds. The singer was known as Shepherd Shadrach Hayden of Bampton. Our interest was aroused, and my husband and I have pieced together Shepherd Hayden's life story, and what an interesting story it's proved to be. The obvious place to start our quest was, of course, Cecil Sharp's notes on Shepherd Hayden, and his manuscript books tell us quite a bit.
Shepherd Hayden was 83 in April of this year, 1909. His wife, also 83, but in January. They were married when they were 20. They lived together for all of 63 years. They live with their granddaughter and her children. He gets 2 shillings a week and 2 loaves from the parish. She gets 1 and 9pence and nothing else. He was born in Lyford, Berkshire. Emigrating to Bampton when he was a young man, he married a Bampton woman, 3 months younger than himself. She died a year ago, after a marriage life of 60 years. At present, he lives with his grandson and their family of 6 children. That would be their great-grandchildren. Except that he was a little deaf, he was in full possession of all his faculties and physically very active.
Sharp's notes also tell us a great deal about Shadrach Hayden's singing style and the musical variations to his tunes. All this may be fascinating to the academic or folk singer, but what of Shepherd Hayden himself?
On the 24th of August last, the horse race at Newmarket one was. Many fine gentlemen there did go, all for to see such lively sport. Whack for loddy little, for little I day. There was a gentleman of fame, Charles Anson Esquire, and that was his name. He had a kinsman who kept a mare called Little Dum with the 2 crop ears. Whack for loddy diddle, for little I day. He went to his kinsman and thus he did say, I've matched your mare to run this day. Your little nephew will ride today again Mr. Oliver's lively bay. Whack for loddy little, for little I day. It's 50 to 50, this little boy cried, I'm afraid me mare will lose the prize. Oh no, said his uncle, I'm sure it'll beat. Here's a guinea to a shilling again the first heat. Whack for loddy little, for little I day. The trumpet did sound and the drum it did beat. Says the boy to his uncle, I'll lose the first heat. You know very well the good trim of your mare, you lose the first heat if you think you can dare. Whack for loddy little, for little I day. The jockeys were weighed likewise, they're stripped. Then the bold riders began for to whip. And the little dumb mare, I've heard 'em say, carried 12 pound more than the lively bay. Whack for loddy little, for little I day. The gentlemen, they rode around the course, a betting their money on every horse. Says, I'll lay ya now 8 to 5, the little dumb mare will lose the prize. Whack for loddy little, for little I day. Who's that, this little boy cried, that says me mare will lose the prize? Here's 100 bright guineas me uncle left me, I'll venture 'em all on the little dunny. Whack for loddy little, for little I day. The little boy smacked his whip, it made little Dunny to jump and to skip. As they came galloping over the moor, the little dumb mare came tripping before. Whack for loddy little, for little I day. The gentlemen, they rode round the course, as one to the other, our money is lost. It made the bold gentleman stamp and to swear, the devil take you and your little dun mare. Whack for loddy little, for little I day. Well now, me mare have won the race, no longer shall she stay in this place. She's won so much money this very day, as master can't count and carry away. A whack for loddy little, for little I day. She's won so much money, I do declare. She's gone into France and won the prize there. And it's whack for Lottie Little for little Ida.
In Europe, the best wool is English. In England, the best wool is Cotswold. Thus rang the popular saying of medieval times. Shadrach Hayden was born in April 1826 at Lyford in Berkshire, the son of John and Mary Hayden. He was baptised on the 18th of January 1829 at Lyford Church. He had one sister, Rachel, born in 1828. There was no evidence that his father, John Hayden, was a shepherd. Census returns show that he worked as an agricultural labourer. Young Shadrach followed in his father's footsteps and also worked the land at Lyford. Lyford lies in the Vale of the White Horse. It is an area rich in folk song and folklore, and certainly Shadrach learned his songs from his family and his workmates. But the young Shadrach had set his sights on pastures new, and when he was 23 he moved to Hatford, and seeing the possibility of bettering himself, began to train as a shepherd. It was time to put the wild times of his youth behind him.
7 long years I've been a-weaving, weaving me a new suit of clothes. And when I'd saved me a little money, I took a ramble, as you may suppose. As I was going up fair London city, yeah, Nancy whiskey I chanced to smell. I thought it proper to call and see her, for 7 long years I have loved her well. I boldly knock it all at the window, saying pardon me for making free. She says, young man, you are kindly welcome, you're welcome here to this company. Said she, sit down and we will drink together, for the more we'll drink, then we'll sport and play. I boldly call it all for a waiter, now what's the reckoning I have to pay? You're reckoning 6 30 shillings, for you've been drinking most of the day. Along with you and your Nancy whiskey, come pay it down now and go your way. I put me hand all into me pockets, and I paid it down in ready coin. And when I parted with all me money, it bought me store just a 1/2 crown. Now when I woke up all in the morning, I found myself in some strange bed. I tried to dress, but I wasn't able. Young Nancy whiskey, she runs in my head. So I walked up and down fair London city, a pretty girl, well, I chanced to meet. And with her I spent 2 and 2pence, and bought me store down to just 4 pence. Then boldly I called for good liquor, oh, this 4 pence may go with the rest. For all of the girls in fair London city, young Nancy whiskey I do love the best. Now I'll go home and I'll go to me loom, and there I'll work for all me time. And if I should live for 100 years, young Nancy whiskey may me there find.
A shepherd was and still is an important part of rural life. Shepherds were able to command their own wages and pick and choose their jobs. Should a shepherd be dissatisfied with the treatment handed out by the farmer, he could be confident of employment elsewhere. There is many the story told of a disgruntled shepherd marching away to a new situation when his pride had been dented. Shepherding was a secure and respected profession, but it's hard and lonely. Despite the wild ways of his youth, Shadrach Hayden undertook his training and worked hard. However, he had an eye for a pretty girl, and sometime around 1847, Shadrach spied his future bride, a young woman from Hatford called Jane Neal. She was the same age as his sister Rachel. Jane Neal and Shadrach Hayden were married on the 13th of November 1849 at Holy Trinity Church, Hatford.
When I was a young man, I lived and ready, all my time I freely spent. I married a wife for to lie near me, it causes me for to lament. Long time I wooed her, for I wed her, a young girl's heart not easy won. But now she's fairly altered her meaning, and a poor man's labour's never done. Now the very first year that we were married, now scarce could I get one wink of sleep. She rubbed my shins till the blood ran down them. Husband dear, stretch down your feet. Very next year when we were married, a very fine baby we had born. Now she forsook it, so I took to it, and I wrapped it up and I kept it warm. Now when I come home both wet and weary, there's no dry clothes for to put on. Me wife's a-bawling, the children's a-squalling, and the poor man's labour's never done. Away to the alehouse she runs a-bawling, like some donkey rattling home. And into me face her hands come a-flaying, well, the poor man's labour's never done. Now all young men with the mind to marry, be careful how you go and choose your wife. If you marry my wife's sister, you'll have a devil all the days of your life. Don't you marry my wife's mother, else your sorrows are just begun. But take from me my wife and a welcome, and then my troubles will be done.
Despite the misogynistic songs that Shepherd Hayden sang, by all accounts he was happily married. Jane and Shadrach's first son, Henry, was born safely 1 year later in 1850. He was followed by a daughter, Annie Eliza, in 1852. But, as in all Victorian families, there was a measure of sorrow, and there were difficult times ahead. However, in 1852 all was well. Shadrach Hayden was 26. His training was well underway, and although he was not highly educated, his repertoire of songs show him to be musically aware, able, and with a good memory for words.
Were three gypsies come to the door. They sang a brisk and a bonny o. They sang so high and sang so low. Downstairs ran a lady o. She pulled off her new silk gown. Around her shoulders a blanket thrown. Around her shoulders a blanket thrown. Toddle with the draggle-tailed gypsies, oh. When the old lord he came home, inquiring for his lady, oh, the housemaid made him this reply: she's gone with the draggle-tail gypsies, oh. Bridle me my milk-white steed, saddle him so bonny, oh, I may ride and seek for me dear, who's toddled with the draggle-tail gypsies, oh.
Shepherd Hayden would have been absent from home for long periods of time during the working year, especially at lambing and sheep shearing times. His lonely job as a shepherd was no friend of family life. In 1856, Jane was expecting for the third time, but the child was born prematurely. A local midwife, Mary Ann Belcher, helped to deliver a little boy on the 28th of May. The family decided to call him Shadrach after his father, but he only lived for 6 short hours. The cruel reality of Victorian family life is that child mortality was extremely high, largely due to the sanitary conditions that prevailed in rural areas, and, if the truth be known, amongst working class people generally. It is sadly no surprise that history was to repeat itself for the Haydens, and on the 6th of October 1858, another son, John, was still born. This was during the 7th month of her pregnancy. Jane Hayden had a mother's grief to bear, but Shadrach was the breadwinner, and despite his own sorrow, his sheep could not be left unattended, and the battle of the day-to-day living had to continue.
As the soldier and the sailor was a-walking one day, said the soldier to the sailor, I'm a-going for to pray. The first thing I'll pray for all men. Whenever I do pray, you shall answer amen. Well, the next thing that I pray for our Queen, that she may have a long life and a long may she reign. And when she have won £1, I wish she have 10, that she'd never want for money, cried the soldier, amen. Now the next thing that I pray for good cheer, that we may never want for good ale or strong beer. And when we have 1 quart, well, I wish we had 10, that we'd never want for strong beer, cried the soldier, amen. Now the last thing that I pray for our King, that he may have long life and long may he reign. And when he has 1 man, I wish he had 10, he'd never want for an army, cried the soldier, amen.
So where was Shepherd Hayden when he was so sorely tried? The answer is that he was herding his sheep, out on the downs, in all weathers, with the dog he'd trained himself. At night he would be in his hide, a small wagon on wheels containing a stove, a bed, an oil lamp, spare crooks and hard-weather clothing. At night, during lambing time, maybe he would sing his songs to keep himself amused as he watched the sheep. This would account for his excellent memory for words, and the fact that in his late 80s he was able to recite a full version of the ballad Lord Bateman to the folk song collector Alfred Williams.
A well-known old ballad, this popular version of the still earlier piece. It is thought to refer to the period of the Crusades, common through the whole of the Thames Valley, though never sung now. I obtained this version from Shadrach Hayden of Hatford, Farringdon.
Lord Bateman, he was a noble lord of high degree. He set his foot on board a ship and said strange countries he'd go see. Well, he sailed east and he sailed west until he came to proud Turkey. Well, the Turks, they took him and put him into prison until his life was quite weary. In that prison there stood a tree that grew so very stout and strong, where he was chained all by the middle until his life was almost gone. This turkey had one only daughter, the fairest creature me eyes did see. She stole the keys of her father's prison, swore Lord Bateman she would set free. Have you got houses? Have you got land? Have you got estates at your command? What would you give to the Turkish lady if out of a prison you could get free? I've got houses, yes, I've got lands. Half Northumberland belongs to me. I'd give it all to the Turkish lady if out of a prison I could get free. She took him to her father's hall, gave to him the best of wine. Every health she drank unto him. I wished, Lord Bateman, that you were mine. 7 long years I've made a vow, 7 more I'll keep it strong. If you're not wed with another woman, I'll never wed with another man. Well, she took him to her father's harbour, gave to him a ship of fame. Farewell to you, my own Lord Bateman, I fear I shall never meet you again. 7 long years were gone and past, and 14 days well known to me. She dressed herself in her gay clothing, said Lord Bateman she would go see. When she came to Lord Bateman's castle, so boldly then the bell rang she. Who's there, who's there, cried the proud young porter. Who's there, come tell to me. Oh, is this Lord Bateman's castle? Aye, is it lordship now within? Oh yes, cried the proud young porter, he's just now taken his new bride in. Go tell him to send me a slice of bread and a bottle of the very best wine, not to forget of the Turkish lady who did release him when close confined. Away and away went the proud young porter, away and away went he, until he come to Lord Bateman's chamber. Down he fell upon his bended knee. What news, oh me proud young porter? What news have you brought to me? Here is one of the fairest of all young ladies that ever my eyes did ever see. She has got rings on every finger, round one of them she has got free, and as much gay clothing hangs round her middle as would buy all of Northumberland. She bids you send her a slice of bread and a bottle of the very best wine, and not to forget the fair young lady who did release you when close confined. Bateman then flew in a passion. He broke his sword in splinters three, saying, I would give all my father's riches if my Sophia has crossed the sea. Then upspoken this a young bride's mother, she was never heard to speak so free. Don't you forget, my only daughter, if your Sophia's come across the sea. I own I made a bride of your daughter, she's none the better nor the worse for me. She came to me with a horse and saddle, she may go back with her coach and three. Lord Bateman, he prepared another wedding, with both their hearts so full of glee. I roam no more in a foreign country, since my Sophia has come from sea.
Long periods of isolation might explain why Shepherd Hayden was such a talented singer of tunes, and his ability to encompass difficult metrical modes is almost unsurpassed. As a trained musician, Cecil Sharp was fascinated by Shadrach's singing and makes note after note in his manuscript books. It's questionable as to whether the song was in 3/2 or 5/2. Very probably it was 3/2. This was Sharp's note after Shadrach had presented him with his version of the Hearty Poacher.
Keeps them in me keeping, to hunt them as it run by nights while gamekeepers lie sleeping. Me and me dogs, we went out one night to view our habitation. Oh, up jumps a hare and she runs away right into my plantation. Well, she jumped, she squealed, she hollered out, "Aunt, something stopped her running." Well, I says, "Poor puss and a pray you lie still, your uncle is a-comin'." So I picked her up and I cracked her neck, in me pocket I put her. Well, I says to me dogs, oh, we'd better be gone, or else we'll meet some looker. Well, we hadn't gone scarce half a field or further, when up jumps another roundaway. She run me dogs and she cried murder. To a neighbour's house, asked them what they'd give me. Well, they said they would give me a crown a brace if I could catch them 50. Well, I went into a public house and there I got quite mellow. Well, I spent a crown and another lay down. Don't you think I'm a good-hearted fellow?
It seems that Shadrach could not separate the words from the tunes of his songs, and Sharp often notes that the words are much the same as broadside versions, but impossible to get him to say them, or in another case, impossible to note words. The problem is that Shepherd Hayden would not sing a song the same way twice. Sharp's prize song from Shepherd Hayden's repertoire is the darkly ritualistic John Barleycorn. As I mentioned earlier, the song is reminiscent of the ancient sacrifices to corn gods, but it's sung by country folk as the story of home-brewed ale. It's an interesting side note that the song was recorded by the rock group Traffic in the late 1960s. Folk songs have a stubborn tendency to crop up in the most unlikely of places.
There was 3 men come out of the west, their fortunes for to try. These 3 men made a solemn vow, John Barleycorn should die. They ploughed, they sowed, and they harrowed him in, throw clods all on his head. These 3 men made a solemn vow, John Barleycorn was dead. They let him lie for a very long time, till the rain from heaven did fall. Little Sir John sprung up his head, and soon amazed them all. They let him stand till the midsummer, till he looked both pale and wan. Little Sir John growed a long, long beard, and so became a man. They hired men with the scythes so sharp to cut him off at the knee. They rolled him and tied him around by the waist, served him right barbarously. They hired men with the sharp pitchforks to prick him to the heart, but the loader he served him worse than that, he bound him to a cart. They wheeled him around and around the field till they came unto a barn. There they made a solemn mow of poor John Barleycorn. They hired men with the crabtree sticks to cut him skin from bone, and the miller he served him, and worse than that, he ground him between 2 stones. Here's little Sir John in a nut brown bowl, and brandy in a glass. In little Sir John in the nut brown bowl proved the stronger man at last. The huntsman he can't hunt the fox, nor so loudly blow his horn. The tinker he can't mend his kettles or pots without a little bit of John Barleycorn.
There is no doubt that Shepherd Hayden was a prolific and talented singer with an interesting repertoire of songs. He was also an important member of his community. That is not to say he would not have shared a joke with the next man. He would have had plenty of bawdy songs in his repertoire.
Now a story to you I will tell, concerning of a butcher in our town did well. Now this butcher was possessed of a beautiful young wife, the cunning little couple, well he loved her as his life, with his fal-de-riddle-ide, oh fal-de-riddle-dee. Now the butcher goes to market to buy himself an ox. The cunning little couple just as sly as any fox. He puts on his Sunday clothes, a courting he did go, unto the jolly butcher's wife, he dearly loved her so, with her fal-de-riddle-ide, oh fal-de-riddle-dee. Now he came unto the butcher's house, and on the door did knock. The butcher's wife knew what he meant, and bid him for to stop. Says he, me little darling, have you got a job for me? free. The butcher's wife so cunning says, I'll go upstairs and see. With me fal-de-riddle-I-do, fal-de-riddle-dee. The butcher's wife goes up the stairs and gives the snob a call. I've an easy job for you if you have brought your all. And if this job you do for me, some money to you I'll pay. Oh, thank you, said the cobbler, and began to stitch away with his fal-de-riddle-I-do, fal-de-riddle-dee. Now, while the cobbler was at work, a knock came at the door. The cobbler scrambled out of bed and lay down on the floor. Says he, me little darling, oh, what will your husband say? But then she let a policeman in along with her to play with me fal-de-riddle-I-do, fal-de-riddle-dee. Then the butcher come from market and it put him in a fright. The policeman scrambled out of bed and soon was out of sight. The butcher's wife's so nimble while she locked the bedroom door, and in her fright she quite forgot the cobbler on the floor with the fal-de-riddle-I-do, fal-de-riddle-dee. Now the butcher being tired, he started up to bed. There's something here is very hard. The butcher smiled and said she, it is me rolling pin. The butcher could but laugh. Me darling, you've been rolling your bread with a policeman's staff, and his fal-de-riddle-I-do, fal-de-riddle-dee. Now the butcher threw the truncheon underneath the bed, and there it cracked the piddle pot and it broke the cobbler's head. The cobbler cried out, murder, and the butcher, who are you? I am the little cobbler who mends the lady's shoes with me fal-de-riddle-I-do, fal-de-riddle-dee. Now if you're the little cobbler, well, it's come along with me. I'll pay you well for mending shoes before you go, says he. He puts him in the bullock's pen, the beast began to roar. How the butcher laughed as it rolled him o'er and o'er by his fal-de-riddle-I-do, fal-de-riddle-dee. Now early the next morning when the people were about, the butcher rubbed his face with blood and kicked the cobbler out, and on his back a paper pinned, and on it was the news: this cobbler into bedrooms goes to mend the lady's shoes with his fal-de-riddle-I-do, fal-de-riddle-dee.
In 1874, Shepherd Hayden's son Henry was courting, and he eventually married Rebecca Thorne, and in the following month his daughter Annie Eliza married William Wiltshire. In 1881 a mystery occurs. William Wiltshire, Shadrach's son-in-law, was dead, and all we know is that he died in Bristol, where he was living with Annie Eliza. The cause of his death is totally unexplained. Shadrach was now a grandfather, and Annie Eliza returned home, a widow with 2 young children, Albert Edward and Emily. Shadrach Hayden's burden was increased with these new mouths to feed. So he obtained better paid employment as a shepherd on the Pusey Lodge farm. With the job came a cottage, and the family moved in together. In 1891, Shepherd Hayden was 64, and at this time he made his final move to Bampton, where he continued to work as a shepherd. It was here that he was visited by Cecil Sharp and latterly by Alfred Williams. His songs were taken down and saved for posterity. On the 11th of May, 1910, Shadrach lost his beloved wife, Jane, and he moved in with his grandchildren and great-grandchildren at Bampton. It's a curious fact that most shepherds seem to live to a great age. Maybe it's the healthy lifestyle, or the austerity, or just the plain hardiness that the job demands. Cecil Sharp notes that he's able to jump a 5-bar gate, and Shadrach was in his late 80s at that time. He was happily married for 63 years. He lived a full and active life up to his death in 1915. Shepherd Hayden had his share of sorrow and of hardship, but we feel that for the most part he was a happy man, one of a lost breed of Cotswold folk, who now lie beneath the grass of 100 different country churchyards. He died just as the world was entering a new and terrible phase, when thousands would be butchered on the fields of Flanders, and long-established modes of life would be thrown into disarray, leaving the bewildered country folk to turn their eyes to towns in search of jobs. For our part, let us raise our glasses to Shepherd Hayden and his family, also to the old ways, the old songs, and the old singers who have left us such a gift. God bless them all. Goodbye.